Hey, what is going on YouTube? It is GeneralTarheel, your coach at Charizards, bringing you the APA Season 7 Week 9 battle versus Coach John Jr. and his Portland Nightshaders. Coming into Week 9, we are sitting at 4-4, like we know. If you didn't check out the last battle between Ultra, make sure to do so. It was a very close and very good battle, but unfortunately we did lose 1-0. And right now we are going to be using our third draft from here on out for the remainder of the season. If you haven't seen the draft analysis video for this third draft, please go check it out. There's a lot of Pokemon I have used on here before, but some new ones, and just find out how the draft went. It's a little bit interesting, and let me know what you think of the team, especially after how it performed for this week once we see how that goes. So I haven't faced John before, but I've actually been talking more and more as the season went on, and even from here in APA and then the also APA Academy, I'll talk to him a little bit from here and there. And he's a cool guy, very interesting, very chill dude. And I haven't faced him yet though, that's the thing, don't know how it's gonna go. So he is also right below me in the standings, so I definitely am not gonna underestimate my opponent at all. And definitely a little bit intimidating from the matchup. So as for the 6 I brought, I'll go over them pretty quickly. I always say pretty quickly, but it's always about 10 minutes before you get to the battle, so. I got, of course, Mega Charizard X, our team captain. I have Belly Drum, Roost, Dragon Claw, and Flare Blitz. Now, I have a Belly Drum set strictly because his only Pokemon that outspeeds Mega Charizard X is Salazzle. That's on his entire roster. Or, sorry, that's a lie. He also has Archeops and a Selgor. But looking at the matchup, I'm like, okay, Archeops is definitely not coming. If a Selgor does come, it's not doing anything to Mega Charizard X, apart from a potential final Gamut. And then Salazzle, I'm like, I can deal with that accordingly. I have an amazing Trapper and Dugtrio that can immediately get rid of it. I have a good counter in Swampert and so on and so forth. Excuse me. But, and Zygarde can speed tie, but I highly doubt if you brought Zygarde that it would be Jolly anyways. So, by the way, I have the max speed Charizard with Belly Drum purely so I can Oko Rhyperior as well as Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini will die to a +6 Flare Blitz. That's a lot of damage, but at the same time, I get to Roost up versus a good amount of things on his team, actually, if I do get rid of the Salazzle. And the Rhyperior I have to attack, though. But during prep, I did forget that Dragon Claw will do less damage to Rhyperior in Misty Terrain. That was on my end, but it didn't really come into play too much, but the ideal thing would have just been able for Mega Charizard X to Belly Drum up after Salazzle is gone, and then I'm able just to Flare Blitz and Dragon Claw the remainder of his team and kind of sweep. I can Roost up on a few things and get back to that. Pretty straightforward, nothing too special. Was just hoping to kind of wall break with Charizard because there's a lot of fat mons on his team that I struggle with, which I'll get over soon. But next up, I said I had the Trap, so I did bring Dugtrio. Dugtrio was a standard focus sachet with Earthquake, Memento, Toxic, and Stone Edge. Reasoning behind this set is that I basically just need something to for sure trap Salazzle, as well as just stop from any potential counter sweepers. The Focus Sash allows me to get off like Earthquake damage or a Toxic and then follow up with a Memento, and hopefully get a Mega Charizard X and potentially sweep from there. I have Stone Edge in case Salazzle wants to be on an air balloon instead of having Shed Shell, so I can just try and take out the Dugtrio that way. Stone Edge also just helps me to get neutral damage off versus things like Decidueye, as well as hit Archeops if need be. I didn't really think it'd be that necessary, but at the same time I felt like Stone Edge was still slightly better than, like, I was considering Shadow Claw to hit Cress or Decidueye, but I didn't really feel like that was going to be too big of a deal for my team personally, so I just opted with the Stone Edge. Next up was a Pokemon I was really hoping that was going to sweep, and that was Roserade. Roserade's an interesting set here. I have the Technician, I have the Fire Aim Z with Sunny Day, so we have Z Sunny Day with Weather Ball, Hidden Power Ground, and Giga Drain. Now, if I got rid of Cress, mainly just Cress, because I wasn't so positive if Snorlax was going to come, I didn't really think he would, but at the same time I did think it was pretty decent. But as long as I got rid of Cress, Roserade could just win. It just sets up versus something, and it just wins. See, Sunny Day, if you don't know, gives you +1 speed, and Sun goes up, allowing Weather Ball to become a Fire-type move, allowing me to hit both Decidueye and Mega Scizor, which he opted not to bring, but that is on his roster. For super effective damage, Hidden Power Ground, of course, helps me hit that Salazzle and make sure I get the KO it. The only thing that would be unfortunate if he brought Scarf Salazzle, but there is no way versus my team that he'd be Scarf Salazzle. That makes no sense to me. Definitely going to be some sort of setup nasty plot, or at least sub. But basically, as long as we took out Grass, it just won. I didn't want to put on Leaf Storm because I'll get rid of my special attack, even though it does do more damage. Giga Drain I just felt like be the most helpful because there's a few things that want to get chip off on me. Or if I get up to see Sunny Day and I lose a good amount of health, I want to make sure I can get that back, just so it can help me out just in case I do have to face like a banded Zygarde that does have extreme speed in order for him to try to counter Roserade in the end game. So I feel like Giga Drain was still a little bit better over something potentially like Energy Ball, just so I can try to think about the longevity of the potential sweep, because I'm really only trying to set up with Roserade when I know it can win. Otherwise, might just switch it in versus Tapu Fini because it is pretty free and get off a few Giga Drains versus his team. Helps me get chipped on things like Cresselia, but I am not going to set up until I am confident I am able to sweep. Next up is going to be Skarmory. Skarmory was pretty important here. It was pretty speedy with some defense. I made it outspeed a Cresselia that just wanted to outspeed an Adamant Breloom, because I felt like he was going to go defensive Crest with enough speed to make sure he could outspeed the Adamant Breloom, just to avoid initial setup, because it does stop Breloom's priority then at that point. I would be forced to eat a Psychic or Psyshock, and that's just a whole lot of damage Breloom typically doesn't want to take. That's actually a standard sit on the Calc, is just enough speed to outspeed that Breloom. So ideally, I tried to speed creep that by 1 because I didn't really need too much investment in Skarmory here. Skarmory was strictly to be a somewhat of a check to Rhyperior, Snorlax, and any other real setup. I have Defog, Taunt, Brave Bird, and Defog, Taunt, Brave Bird. I have it set up in another tab, hold up. I'm being a big forehead. Defog, Taunt, Brave Bird, Roost. Roost, of course, for longevity, just to help me versus like the Snorlax for setup or something like that. And I am holding the Oka Berry. This is to help me hopefully cheese the Salazzle if he is shit shell. I'm not able to properly trap it with Dougie, or if I kind of lose my Swampert and I have less of a check to that. But speaking of Swampert, is our designated Salazzle switch-in. This is a mixed defensive Swampert. It allows me to both take two choice banded Thousand Arrows from Adamant Zygarde, as well as take a +2 Life Orb Hidden Power Grass from Salazzle, because I am holding onto the Rindo Berry. And on Swampert, we have Stealth Rocks, Ice Beam, Earthquake, and Roar. No need for Scald, it seems, really, this time around. I'm not really going to be able to get it burned with Misty Terrain up, and I'd rather make sure I can Toxic Cresselia than anything else. That's why I have it on Dugtrio. As much as I wanted to fit like Toxic on something else, I felt like it was really necessary for the moves I have on the other Pokemon. Skarmory really to stop any potential setup or hazards, and Swampert really just would prefer to roar Pokemon out. It's still helpful versus Crest if it tries to sub up and everything like that, so that is still important. But there was really, once again, no need for the Scald. Ice Beam just helps me out versus mainly Zygarde and a little bit of Decidueye. Ice Punch would be better for Decidueye, but Ice Beam is better for Zygarde in case it is a coil set. Yes, I have Roar in the back, but at the same time, if I know Ice Beam can KO, I'd rather get rid of it just in case that thing comes back in later, and for some reason he can like Lunar Dance into it with Cresselia or something like that. If I can knock it out there, that is going to be the most ideal thing. And lastly, we have our Alolan Persian. Our Alolan Persian is holding the leftovers with Fur Coat. It has just enough defense to live 2, I believe, Adamant Thousand Arrows. I don't believe Choice Band, but I think just 2 Adamant Thousand Arrows from Zygarde. It was a lot of speed with HP investment. It had Taunt, Parting Shot, Knockoff, and Icy Wind. Icy Wind, of course, do help out with that Zygarde once again, as well as having Knockoff to ensure that I can just get rid of a few items, but I really need a Alolan Persian strictly for its Dark typing, just so Cresselia can't just sweep me with Mono Psychic. If he does have that, I need to keep a Alolan Persian in the back just about always. That's like as soon as I see Crest, until I know Cresselia is set, Alolan Persian is staying in the back because I need to make sure I have a Psychic immunity in case he is Mono Psychic set up. That is the most scary thing right now, is a Calm Mind substitute Moonlight Psychic / Psyshock. That is the scariest thing for my team, because Cresselia is really hard for my team to break. And speaking of his team, seeing his sticks, we have Cresselia, Snorlax, Tapu Fini, Cresselia, Snorlax, Tapu Fini, Salazzle, Decidueye, and Rhyperior. Rhyperior, I knew 1,000,000% was going to come. It's an amazing check to Mega Charizard X. I honestly feel like this was a counter pick, considering it was like one of his last 3 in the draft, and it is really possible he just counter drafted this strictly for Mega Charizard X. I'm not sure though. He still needed rockers at that point. He only has 2 rockers on his team, and this and Archeops. Decidueye I felt like was a pretty good bring on his part. I wasn't necessarily entirely expecting it. I know it is pretty decent considering it does get defogs kind of free versus my Stealth Rock setters in Swampert or Dugtrio. But if it was versus, oh, and technically Mesprit as well. So if it was versus Skarmory, that's the only thing it can't really defog free versus, and I could get Hazards up for free. But if I have not to bring Hazards on Skarmory, then that's really good on his part because he's able to pressure any of those Hazard setters and basically get a free defog and never have to worry about Hazards on his side of the field. Next up is Salazzle. Million percent expected it. I knew it was either going to be Shed Cell or just a Z set. 1,000,000%. There was no other reason for him to bring any other version, really, in my opinion. Maybe Substitute, but of course having the Hidden Power Grass coverage and standard stabs. Tapu Fini, just a standard Pokemon, enough speed to deal with the Breloom, just like Cresselia. I don't really think it needed speed for anything else necessarily. Probably just its stabs, maybe Taunt, maybe Defog if he wants it on that over Decidueye, but I feel like if Decidueye would come, Decidueye would definitely be the Defogger. So Tapu Fini could, I guess, use Nature's Madness to weaken down some Pokemon without reliable recovery, such as Mesprit and Swampert. But apart from that, not really too worried. Snorlax, I'm not really sure what to expect out of the Snorlax. Once again, I really wasn't expecting it. It is kind of fair that he brought it though, because my main, because I struggle killing Snorlax. The main way of killing it is, of course, Fighting Stab, and my Fighting Stab is Breloom, which has a really difficult matchup versus the likes of Cresselia and Tapu Fini, because they're able to outspeed it and just not allow him to use his Grass Stab and pressure them out with super effective Fairy and Psychic type moves. Allowing Snorlax to basically be a very good switch-in for majority of my team and deal with it accordingly, especially with him getting Thick Fat to deal with Mega Charizard X, as well as the Misty Terrain weakening Dragon Claw. So basically Snorlax here to deal with 2 stabs versus the Charizard, which is a very good bring actually, now that I see it. And lastly, Cresselia is a very fat Pokemon that I struggle with. Like I mentioned, I just really struggle breaking it. A very solid Calm Mindset could just potentially sweep me. Very scary. I'm sorry I talked for just 12 minutes right now. I'm going to get in the match because that's what I owe y'all, is the actual battle. I know I struggle at doing it, but I really just don't have time to do team builders. I do these in a very short amount of time, like before my weekend. So please keep that in mind. I try my best. And I try to do it quickly, but I do just love talking mons. But team builder is a little extra work for me. So, but we're going to start the battle right here. When I was seeing a 6, I'm like, this is perfectly fine. I'm just going to lead Alolan Persian. I get a taunt off versus the majority of this, and if he wants to lead Salazzle, I just go Hard Swampert and I can get on my rocks or just potentially kill it, just so I don't risk the Hidden Power Grass, because Swampert is kind of free to click Earthquake versus his team as well, even though Decidueye might be a potential problem. So, looking into the lead on Decidueye, I'm like, okay, this is perfect. This is the most free knockoff of my life. Whatever he wants to go into, will lose an item. And if he wants to keep in Decidueye, then I get a lot of damage. And if it's Scarf and it U-turns, then at least I have that known. At the first turn of the match would be amazing. So I go for knockoff as a switch into Tapu Fini, which is very expected. And get rid of its leftovers. That's leftovers number 1. I'm going to go for Parting Shot on this Tapu Fini right here, because of course I do not want to stand. Once again, want to keep Alolan Persian healthy, make sure I have it in the back for Cresselia until I know what it is. Knowing this, I'm going to go right into my Romeo, my Roserade. Shiny Roserade is so clean. Roserade's probably, I don't know about top 5, maybe top 10 of my favorite Pokemon. I guess its shiny is just so clean too. It also go for Nature's Madness, which is pretty good on his part. Knowing Roserade's probably the switch in, he can't really do damage into it with either of his stabs. But brings Roserade down to half. Knowing that he's not going to stay in here, no matter what, I'm going Hard Charizard, hoping he goes into the likes of Decidueye or Cresselia. Once again, wasn't really expecting Snorlax to coming in here. So at the same time, I was just like, oh, this isn't that bad. I'm just going to Mega Evolve here, just so I can get it off, and I'm going to click Dragon Claw just to scout out damage. This allows me to 1, check the Rhyperior set on potential switch in, or 2, just go ahead and check this Snorlax, because I really doubt he's going into anything else. If he goes to Fini, once again, I still have Roserade, and that's when I click Giga Drain, at least I get some of my health back. Snorlax seems like a pretty standard like Curse Slack set right here based off that damage, and he opts to go for the Body Slam. Luckily, he did not get the Paralyze. Paralysis, mainly because Misty Terrain's up, you freaking forehead, that's why I couldn't get it on you. But I'm going to switch on the Skarmory because I am scared of it just being an annoying Snorlax. There was really no reason for me to keep Charizard in there, because once Misty Terrain does go away, I do have the chance of getting paralyzed, and I'm really just not feeling it. Right here, I really wasn't expecting him to stay in with Snorlax, so I just went for Brave Bird, assuming a really offensive play in Skarmory, or sorry, Salazzle. And even if he opted for some reason to go into Rhyperior, then I just taunt it so he's not able to get up rocks. If he goes into Cresselia, I just taunt it once again. So Brave Bird was kind of where he gets chip on anything of the sort. Especially mainly I wanted to be able to 2-hit KO Salazzle if he opted to go really hard into it. But he decides to go for Curse on Snorlax. That's totally fine by me. I'm just going to taunt with Skarmory. I beat this thing 1v1, I know that for sure. This is the only reason I didn't bring Whirlwind is because I knew I beat it. And the other reasoning for not bringing Whirlwind and doing taunt over that, not only is it potential hazards, but if he were to be the most ideal setup Crest and the most ideal setup Zygarde, I know that he would save it in the back because this was going to be a close match, I had a feeling. So if he kept it in the back, then there's no reason for him not to just make it the last Mon if he can waste all of his other Pokemon to bring it down, because then I'm not able to Whirlwind it out because it's the last Pokemon. So that's why Haze is always better, but unfortunately I don't have that. So right here, I decided I'm going to stay in, I'm going to click Brave Bird, because I live one Fire Blast because I am Oak Berry, of course. I wouldn't die to recoil or anything, as you see right here. He went for the Hidden Power Grass over predicting, which is perfect, because now I'm able to click double Brave Bird. If he opts to switch out, that's totally fine. I get to scout a set of another Pokemon. I get to roost up for like just about his whole team. And if he opts to stay in here, I live and he hit. Excuse me. And I'd be able to go for a Brave Bird and probably knock it out. Now, he was actually modest, which was really surprising here. So if he was Fire Blaster or Flamethrower, that probably would have knocked me out. But I also went for Brave Bird purely because if he wasn't Shed Shell, there's potentially he was still Focus Sash, and there's might not be a good chance of me getting up Hazards with Swampert purely because he has the Decidueye in the back, which I'm sure has Defog. So that's the only reason I really kept in Skarmory there, and since I can still feel like I can deal with Snorlax somewhat with Charizard plus Dugtrio, then I'm kind of risking the Skarm, but Snorlax can still be scary depending on what it is. But since he has leftovers, it makes me feel like he's rest. So as long as Tapu Fini stays around, he can't rest with Snorlax. So that's what I'm risking to do. So I went Rose right on the Tapu Fini, of course. It's just about always going to be my play. Click Giga Drain. Does a decent amount of damage for Snorlax, actually. We do get a decent amount of health back, because Snorlax does have that fat HP stat to help us out a little bit. I'm just going to opt to click Giga Drain once again. If he wants to go to Curse, that's totally fine. But at the same time, if he wants to click Body Slam, we're able to live one. So I just really felt like it'd be more beneficial to just get off the most damage I can on the Snorlax to where I'm able to properly trap it with Dugtrio and get rid of it. So that was my reasoning right here. I stayed in and I click Giga Drain. I'm like, if he goes for Body Slam, it's whatever. I go into Dugtrio, I click Earthquake, this thing's done. Because Snorlax was a potential problem. It really was. But he opted to stay in and go for Rest when Misty Terrain was up, which is really strange. He totally forgot that it doesn't get to Rest. He told me after, he honestly didn't really know, or he forgot. It was either or. I was like, yeah, you just need to remember, Rest will be cancelled, because if that wasn't the case, then Tapu Fini itself would run Rest. So, now he's going to make the play into Decidueye, which is totally fair. I don't really have too much I want to do here, so I'm going to make sure I need to switch, and Misty Terrain does go away, so even though Roserade was a potential sweeper, once again, I was willing to sack it purely to get rid of that Snorlax. Just because I felt like that was a problem if it was able to get its health back, and once again, Lunar Dance Crest, or if it was able to rest if Misty Terrain wasn't up, that was very dangerous. So I wanted to make sure it could still get rid of it. But I'm going to make the play of Charizard into the Decidueye here. There's no reason for me not to make this play. I was able to deal with both an offensive or a special Decidueye, and if you want to go for a momentum-based, wasn't really expecting Tapu Fini to do anything, and if he did go Rhyperior, I felt like he'd go for Rocks, just kind of over-predicting, because there's no reason for Charizard to stay in versus Rhyperior, so I'd Belly Drum right in its face and just scare him. So he's going to Toxic me, which is, once again, annoying. You don't really normally expect a status team when you're facing a team with Tapu Fini. It doesn't make sense, in all honesty, and I wasn't really happy with it, because this does wear down my Charizard, so I guess kudos to him. But at the same time, it really didn't work out that well. So he's going to go into his Tapu Fini here, and as I belly drop up Charizard. Now this is an important play. He either lets his Tapu Fini stays in here, or he just switches out and... Sorry. switches out and like goes into Rhyperior in case he was expecting me to have Thunder Punch, which he kind of does here. If I would have roosted, then I would have been able to be a lot more of like threat to his team. But unfortunately, I decided to go for the attacking move. Not the worst case. I didn't really feel like Charizard was going to be able to do anything with that Toxic on him anyways, so it's whatever. But I'm going to pause right here. It's obvious I go into Dugtrio to trap this thing. One, I need to be able to take off some of the Pokemon out of the layout because I got rid of Salazzle, and Charizard's gone as well now. But what I was going to say was that I actually got the min roll possible versus this Rhyperior. I could have OHKO'd it, wouldn't have made a difference, it just would have been double down. If anything, this still does hurt me because this allows him to get a free switch into either Decidueye or Tapu Fini, which is really probably the most annoying Pokemon versus me at the moment. Because if he goes Crest, that's fine, I get the Toxic hit. Because Crest is levitating, so it's not affected, or it's not protected by Misty Terrain. I am able to Toxic it. But, so a double down would have been nice. Because he did send me a set. I knew going into this, if he was max HP, Flare Blitz did a minimum of like 97, 98, but he was max HP with a little, or not max, but a good amount of HP with a little bit of defense, and it basically made it to around 96, and that was basically like the min I got. But, so Charizard goes down, it's whatever, it's totally fine. Once again, I don't really think it would have made that big of a difference anyways, but I was just kind of amazed that I got the min roll possible. But even if I did Roost versus the Tapu Fini, I couldn't be going for Dragon Claw because it's doing less damage than the Misty Terrain. So Flare Blitz was going to be my play nonetheless. And if I didn't get the roll, then Charizard still would have been knocked out. I'm pretty sure even if I Roosted, that Charizard would have been knocked out to 2 turns of Toxic plus Flare Blitz. I'm pretty positive. So, continuing the match, I'm going to go in, of course, to Dugtrio just to trap it, click EQ, make it done, force him to go into the Tapu Fini or the Decidueye. Really expecting the potential Decidueye because that has like the best matchup versus the remainder of my team. It's actually really scary, but he opts to go into the Fini. I'm not going to complain. That was kind of unexpected. But so I'm going to switch out right here, and I'm going to go right into my Swampert because this is my best thing to deal with Fini at the time because Roserade is decently weak, and now that Snorlax is extremely weak, and I know the rest of his team basically, as long as I can get Chip on that Cresselia, Roserade still has a chance to win the game. I'm keeping that in mind here. So he's going to go just right into his Decidueye as I'm just going to get a Rocks. I felt like there was a chance he wasn't going to go Decidueye. Knowing Mist was going to disappear next turn, I felt like there was a chance he'd go Snorlax and try to rest. So I just want to get Stealth Rocks up and then Earthquake Snorlax the following turn, I guess, because whatever. But I'm also just going to try to get as much chip as possible off versus Decidueye, just to pressure it as much as I can, because this thing is honestly pretty scary when he turns out to show that he's like an HP variant with leftovers. 5 out of 6 of his mons this matchup had leftovers, which is pretty weird. He got 2 special defense traps, and first one, none of them really mattered. But Swampert didn't like that, and Swampert decided to get revenge real quick. Yeah, there's nothing really else to say about that. I crit Frozen. This was a big turning point in the match, and that's pretty like obvious. So this basically just allowed Decidueye not to get up a Roost, and basically just wall out the rest of my team, because unless I was able to get a Roost with Skarm, which is honestly only able to do versus Snorlax, which then would also give Snorlax a free rest, I basically kind of almost got walled out by this thing. So it was really good how it turned out. I'm just going to be straightforward. It definitely benefited me, but I still felt bad that like, a crit freeze sucked, because even if it didn't crit, he would have been able to deal with it accordingly, because he definitely would have been able to switch because he'd be forced to go for 2 more Ice Beams, but I went for Earthquake the first time he was frozen just in case he opted to switch. Right here I'm keeping Swampert in, it's just here to die at this point, it's totally fine. Yes, I have for Roar to get rid of stuff and it'd be a little bit helpful, but Roar is the negative priority, so no matter what I'm going to be getting knocked out versus Crest or Snorlax if it tries to set up. So I got a spam Roar versus the Crest that switched in, not to let it do any form of shenanigans. Brings it on the top of Fini, gets up to Misty Terrain again, but he's just going to OptiClick Moonblast, and he is going to take out my Swampert, which is totally fine. I'm going to go into Roserade here. This, once again, pressures him so hard. I just click Giga Drain. There's really no reason for me to make another play. because he goes into Crest, I at least get to scout how much damage he's going to be doing. If he goes into Snorlax, I'm able to 2-hit KO it, or I believe just OHKO it at this point after Stealth Rocks actually, because he was never able to get off a defog. So Roserade was able to pick up the kill on Snorlax, getting a little bit of health back. But this is kind of scary because this does mean Crest gets to come into here for free, which I wasn't really looking forward to. So right here, I'm gonna switch out Romeo, and I'm gonna go into Dugtrio. So here's the thought processes behind my play. If you were to substitute here, I would go back into Alolan Persian and taunt it and knock off and just try to get rid of his sub, and then sack Skarmory. And because I need to make sure that Crest just doesn't have a sub up when Doug's in. I felt like there was a chance he would go for Moonlight, and luckily he did, so that worked out accordingly. So I was going to go for Toxic here, of course, to Toxic the Cresselia in case you forgot that it's not immune in Misty Terrain. It can still be statused. And then luckily Misty Terrain runs out, so I'm going to go ahead and get the Toxic offers this Tapu Fini, because there's a few good things here. One, I'm sashed, so I live any hit. He doesn't have any form of hazards to get up on my side of the field, so I can just switch out Dougie and bring it back in to make sure I can get the Toxic off on Skarmory at one point in the match. Two, if he opted to click Hydro Pump, which he showed earlier, and he missed, then Dougie would be able to at least get some Earthquake damage off and potentially 2-hit KO Tapu Fini after a few turns of Toxic plus Earthquake. But I'm going to switch out, go Hard Rose right here. This is my best check, of course. I don't want to waste Skarm because, once again, I want Skarm as a sack, just in case, so I can get Dougie in for free versus the Cresselia. So I'm going to click Giga Drain. We're going to knock out the Tapu Fini, which is perfect. He couldn't really... he could have went Cresselia, I feel like, but at the same time, I guess he felt like he was just going to get walled either way by Roserade at one point, and it really wasn't going to work out for him in the end. Crest is at full, it wasn't really going to lose to Roserade in any way possible, so I don't fully understand why he just decided to openly sack it. But I guess he didn't really see like it mattered that much at that point. But he's going to sub up with Cresselia here, and this is when he messages me, or sorry, I'm going to go for Taunt here versus Cresselia, and basically this will just stop him from there on out. I had to go for Taunt. There's a chance he had Moonblast. If he had Moonblast, he could 2-hit KO me, and that was very scary, but he opts to show Toxic. And this, once again, confused me. I don't know why he has that much status on a team with Misty Terrain, including a Rest Snorlax. If he was like an Ipapa Recycle Snorlax that was set up, and if he was just a Calm Mind, like, not even Mono Psychic, because that would really work. If he was just Calm Mind, Moonlight, Moonblast Psychic, or Psyshock, I'm pretty sure I lost to Cresselia, period. Like, there's really nothing my team could do about that. Especially once Charizard went down. Yeah, Dougie would be able to deal with it because of the Toxic on the Levitate, but apart from that, there's really nothing I could do. Especially after my Swampert went down. But from here on out, he told me, of course, he just had Psychic, so we're going to be able to knock off and kill the rest of this. I'm just not even play the rest of it. You can see I go for knockoff here, and I'm able to knock out the Crest. I just want to skip through some of those because even though he did tell me he only has Psychic left, he asked me if he wanted to forfeit. I was like, no, just spam Psychic. But at the same time, I didn't want to be risky, so I told him that can I just go to the start screen? Thank you. I told him that, or I was still clicking Taunt whenever it ran out, just so I didn't get like robbed. He didn't want to cheese me or anything. Not accusing him of doing such a thing, but when I have a lead like that versus such a dangerous Pokemon like Cresselia, I want to be sure I could clutch it out. So very, very scary match, but we were able to pull it out, luckily. Honestly, that could have went a lot of ways. If he really just opted to bring in more of a reliable setup team instead of a status team with Misty Terrain, then I think I would have lost this match. But luckily we were able to work around it. Hopefully I don't have to deal with crazy fat Psychics like Cresselia again. I don't have to worry about Reuniclus, I know that. I don't think I have to worry about another Mew. But yeah, so just to recap, also this is the second Tapu Fini. Don't know if I faced one. Don't think I faced one in the first 3 weeks. Maybe I did. Either way, that was a Tapu Fini back-to-back, because last week we did face one with ultraplayer, and ultraplayer also had Snorlax, but he opted not to bring that. That was the third Snorlax I faced. Let's see, did he have any other ones that I've faced already before. There wasn't a Selgor, but I wasn't too worried about that. So mainly I'm just annoyed that I have to face 3 Snorlaxes and 2 Tapu Finis. And that's only for the rest to come, as I will face 2 Cocos, 3 Heatrans, 2 Mega Venusaurs, 2 Mega Aerodactyls, I believe, and I think 2 Clefables, maybe? Either way. I didn't point this out on my draft analysis video, that's why I'm talking about it. I do like the concept of drafting multiple times, and then you come to the realization that you have to face, if you have terrible luck like me, you face the same annoying Pokemon that you typically hate multiple times. Not a fan of it. I'm really, like, if I was in multiple leagues, I would not sign up for a multi-draft again. I love that APA is doing it. I love that it's getting other leagues to do it. It's definitely a cool thing to add to seasons. But personally, facing multiple Pokemon at the same time, I'm not about it. That's why I'm not too big on laddering. I like Draft League because it is unique. You get to play with a certain team for the next few weeks. You don't typically see the same Pokemon again unless there's like some sort of free agency. I guess you could say that's what I'm looking at when I'm facing them twice. But when I'm, getting a new team and not really expecting to face another one again, then it happens and I'm like, ah. But just gotta learn to adapt and conquer. But I've been talking for a while now, and I definitely need to cut it out because I have work to do before I go home for Easter weekend. Definitely need to get this done beforehand. So that will be it for me this week, guys. Next week we'll be facing Gym Leader Geo and his Giantes. So look forward to that. Versus his Fast Boy team. That's going to be very close. I feel like it's going to be pretty interesting because it's going to be kind of difficult for him to have Fat with that speedy of a team. I'm going to have to look into the matchup more because I really haven't yet. But I'm looking forward to it apart from the Tapu Koko Lucha. So I hope you're looking forward to it as well. But that'll be it from me this week, guys. Make sure to check out John and everyone else for their battles this week. And sub, like, share, deuces.